I'd like to welcome all our guests to this technical session. We have three of us on from the tech committee, myself, James Aitken, Steve Hover and David Smith. Yep, there they are. And we will be here to answer any questions you may have about what we are doing or things perhaps that we ought to be doing. I'm going to begin by taking you through one of our major new activities, which is the building of the information wiki that we've put together that's available on our website. And to do that, I'm going to share my screen where I've put together a presentation which I can share with you. The wiki is a Gage-O version of our of the well-known Wikipedia. So it's an encyclopedia of information that is easy to get at, easy to read, and it should be easy to find information in it. So I'm just going to take you through some of the major features. I'm hoping that some of you might have already looked on the website to find out more about it. When you first come into the wiki from the menus, what you will see is this page. You've got a welcome page of information, and on the left-hand side over here, highlighted in red, you'll see what we call the sidebar. And the sidebar is a series of links which will allow you to get at certain parts of the wiki very quickly from whichever page you happen to be in. So no matter how far you've drilled down into the pages, you will always be able to see this, this list and this index. And what we've tried to do is break down the subject areas so that if you're interested in locomotives, you can click on the locomotives page. And if you're interested in coaches, wagons, generic items, etc., you have a link that allows you to click through and find out more about it and get a little bit more information about that particular area. Once you've gone through a number of pages in the system, you'll find this trace starts to build up. And what it is, it's another word for it that programmers know is breadcrumbs. So if you remember your stories from your childhood, you know all about leaving breadcrumbs behind to find out where you've been. And that's what the trace does. So the trace shows you the pages which you visited most recently. And as you can see here, that I have been to the home page. I then went to locomotives, looked at locomotives scratch, coaches ready to run, coach scratch, and wagons ready to run. So I'm just sort of popping around the pages. Those links, anything in blue on the page is a link. So you'll notice that on the sidebar on the left-hand side, all of the things you can click on are blue, and similarly in the trace, all of those links are also blue. And so if you've been to a page and you think, actually, I want to go back to that page, you can just click on the page that you're interested in. And we've tried in the wiki to give you reasonably sensible names. Obviously, if the page names are lengthy, then that trace goes on for some while. So we've tried to keep them short but meaningful. Another way to find information in the wiki is to use the search facility. So the search box is up on the right-hand side, and it's just a normal edit box. You can type in the information that you require into that box and hit enter, or you can press the little find button that's on the right-hand side. If, for example, you wanted to search for Dapol because you're interested in things about Dapol products, once you've searched, it will come up with this type of box here. So the first thing it does, it will find any pages which contain that string. And here we can see that we've got a DAPOL page in our traders area. We've got a DAPOL Isle of Wight Terrier. This is probably an article or a review, and so on. Once again, anything in blue you can click on. So if you want to go to a particular page, you can go straight onto it. Below that are full text results. These show you pages where the string you're looking for occurs at some place in that page. And once again, the page names and the place where they're found. So here we can see that there's a page called DAPOL LBSC Terrier, which is contained within the Gazette archive in Gazette Volume 19. And there's a brief description that you can read. Oh, okay, maybe that's the one I'm interested in. And then you can click on the blue link, which will take you straight to the page of interest. As you can see on the right-hand side, there's a scroll bar here. So that indicates that there's a lot more information below what we're looking at right now. So there's a lot of searches, there's a lot of stuff found. So moving on to trader details, if you go to a trader page, you will find information to allow you to contact a particular trader. Their address, phone number, email address, and website address are all displayed, as long as we have that information in our databases. Below that, you may see some of the product types. Now, again, I don't know if most of you are aware that we have a thing called a product directory in the Gage O Guild website. The Gage O Guild product directory contains just about 20,000 different products from our O-Gage traders, categorized into different areas. What we've done in the wiki is bring that information out from our product database and display it in this form. The benefit of both these pieces of information is that they are up to date. Even if this page on the wiki has not been touched for some while, if any change has occurred to either the products that the trader makes or to their contact details, this information will be as up to date as our database is. Okay. One thing, while I'm talking, by the way, if anybody wants to ask questions, then please do so via the chat facility, which you'll find at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see a chat button, just move your mouse towards the bottom of the screen and you should find the chat facility coming up. Right, okay, I do have a question, which I will come on to in a short while, Giles, if you don't mind, because I can actually show you on the website. So moving on to further trader details, another thing that we can do with the wiki is we can display any articles and reviews within the wiki that are tagged with DAPOL or another trader's name. And here, once again, this list will expand as new articles are added. They will automatically appear here. We have a fairly comprehensive Gazette archive. A lot of the articles in the more recent Gazettes have been added into the wiki by copying the text and the pictures from the Gazette itself into the wiki, so they become totally searchable. What we've done with the earlier versions of the Gazette is we've brought the information that was already available through the Gazette archive online into the wiki, so that at least the description of an article, the author, and other small amount of information is available here, and these will link through to the original PDF file. If you click on the blue link that takes you to a specific Gazette volume, then you will see for each issue and the date of that issue the articles that we currently have within the wiki. And that should allow you to go to any article of interest. Okay, so that completes that presentation. So I'm going to minimize that. Now, can you see my screen still? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, James.
So you can see the wiki on the web page. Okay. So going back to Giles's question, he said, I understand from visiting the stand at Gildex a few years ago, there is or was some information available from the tech committee, which provided help regarding how to install Slater sprung horn blocks. Where would I find these details, please? Are they in the wiki or somewhere on the Guild site? And if so, where would I find them? Okay, well, let's have a look at this. Let's search for horn block.
James, I think you're still showing your PowerPoint rather than your web search.
Oh, thanks, John. I did wonder. Right. In that case, if you bear with me for a second, I'm going to share the... Is that better?
Yeah, that looks right.
Oh, great. Right. Apologies for that. I could see it, but obviously you couldn't. So going back to the actual wiki that's online, Giles asked if we could find information about horn block. So let's look for horn block. Okay. Right. So we have an article here which mentions horn blocks. Once the horn block spring castings solder on, there's da-da-da. Okay. And we have another one here that doesn't sound as if it's quite the right one. So let's have a look at this article. So let's just click on that. And we find that this is information taken from a forum article, which includes horn blocks at some point within here. When you do a search, you can see that the word horn block is highlighted in yellow. So you can, it's quite easy to find whereabouts it's gone through to. And it may be that that provides some of the information that you might require. Or at least if it's not what you're after, it might help.
James, excuse the interruption, but there's a lot of noise and we think it might be coming from your microphone. Have you got something operating in the background?
I don't, but what has happened is my laptop fan has started running. So it may well be that. Hopefully my fan will stop soon. Ah, yes. Right. Colin's saying that someone got a vacuum cleaner operating in the background. Is anybody else hearing a lot of noise?
It does sound a bit like a vacuum cleaner in the background, James.
Does it? Okay. I think it is my laptop fan. Hopefully it'll stop soon. Steve was saying when we're looking for categories in the product directory, sometimes you get a % sign shown. What that means, that is equivalent to everything. So it means all. So basically it means there's no specific subcategory for a particular item. So I can go back to the top. So going to, I can go back to that page, the default page, default traders, there you are. Yeah, so this category here, where it says subcategory, what it means is that there is no particular subcategory. So they both supply DMU, EMU or rail cars in ready to run form and everything within that category. Someone else has asked, Mike Knott has asked, is there information available on Wi-Fi battery operated control systems? Right, let's have a look. If we search for the word battery, we have an article here related to conversion to battery powered radio control, which would appear to be significant. There is another one called LiPo battery, and so on. Of course, the word battery could be to do with a battery box. So let's have a look at this one. This article covers conversion to a battery powered radio control. And on some of the articles, we get a table of content as well. So you can move forward to the section on how the location for batteries and so on. So once again, this could be useful information. I tell you what, on this on the background noise, if I mute myself for a second, we'll see whether it goes away.
Yeah, it's gone, James.
Okay, apologies for that. It's me fan. There's nothing else going on in this room, I can assure you. Although earlier on, my wife was doing the hoovering, which makes a change. Would anybody like to take over, Steve or David?
Although I've contributed to this, I've had very little experience of using it, I must confess, because I've been working on other things. The video for today, for the most part. So, I don't know, Steve, or maybe we should just turn it over to questions about anything technical at this point.
I was just going to say, I mean, I'm not a regular
idea.
user of Wikipedia or anything, but having contributed a very small bit and had a look at this video this morning, to me, it's an excellent way of finding particular things that are fragmented, like Gazette articles or forum bits. You know at the back of your mind you've seen it somewhere, but this seems to be an excellent way to find out just where information is. So I see a great future for it once people get to know about it. I'll mute myself again, just in case there's any background noise with me.
Well, my
Perfectly quiet now.
My fan's still running, sadly. It doesn't usually do this, but it obviously, you know, laptops get warm after a while.
It's probably been working a bit hard today, James. Sometimes I found it's quite handy just to put a little something up so that you get an airflow underneath the laptop. Sometimes that stops the fan from running.
Yeah, yeah. It is actually off the desk because it's plugged into a docking station.
Oh, yeah.
So, does anyone have questions related to technical committee rather than Wiki related?
What's the lathe, James, behind your head?
That is a Unimat 4, which I find extremely useful. It's a great tool. I've got a bigger lathe as well. I've got a Myford 7 for doing the big stuff. but the Unimat is an excellent tool. It's nicely centered, and I use it for turning all sorts of very tiny pieces.
But
Yes,
you
I
really
can back I can back James up on that. I've got a Unimat 3, which is slightly older, but it's the same family. I've actually got two, because one's set up as a milling machine. And people say, oh, you know, get the biggest lathe you can. I've also got an ML7 that I can use for bigger stuff. But the thing about the Unimat and lathes of that size is you can just pick them up. They're no bigger than a sewing machine, and you can put them down wherever you want to use them. But most importantly, you can do really fine stuff, and you can get the spindle speeds up to something reasonable for drilling small holes. I've seen so many model engineers with an ML7 trying to drill, say, a 0.5 hole, and the top speed just isn't anywhere near high enough. So I think there are a lot to be said for all these small lathes, but I think the Unimat, and I bought mine, I don't know, 30 years ago, and it served me very well.
But unless you're turning wheels, do you need the larger lathe as well?
That's an interesting question, that. If you've got a big lathe right there and it's available to you, and you've got, say, a soft jaw chuck that you can use, then go ahead and use a bigger lathe. I've tended to do my wheels when I've had to reprofile or make my own wheels. I've tended to rough them out on the ML7, but do all the finishing on the Unimat. Now, the one thing I'd say about turning cast iron wheels, it makes a filthy mess. So I would sort of put small rags around the place to try and catch the worst of it. So perhaps the best reason for doing it on your large lathe is it's probably in a more messy place anyway. But I think if you didn't have a large lathe, you'd manage perfectly well in Unimat. It'd just take a bit longer.
Do you have any experience of the Proxon range of tools, David?
No, I'm afraid I don't. I've heard very good things about them, but when I was looking into lathes in the 1980s, and I sort of picked up all the leaflets, at the time, sort of value for money, because I didn't have much, and for the universal threads which were available on Unimat, that was the one that I chose. Somebody later, subsequently, gave me a Unimat on condition that I would do his machining from then on, which I did. But on the Proxon, I don't know how the prices compare now, because of course the Unimat isn't available, so I don't know. But I say, if you look on the forum, lots of people talk about it. It comes up from time to time. If you have a specific question, go on the forum and ask it, because there will be a number of people there who could answer the question.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question from Giles Brown. He said, my apologies for something of a beginner's question to this audience, but as someone who hasn't installed any form of springing or compensation into a locomotive before, what product would the committee suggest, please? I have a set of Slater's brass horn blocks, and is this a sensible starting point?
Well, I would say yes, it is. That's what I always use. In the early days, I did compensation just because that was what was fashionable at the time, let's say the 1970s and 80s. But I soon went over to full springing, really just because I enjoy it. I find it satisfying. I don't know that it's any better, but the Slater's horn blocks, the bee's knees for that, I have had to make my own sometimes. They're not better, it's just that the Slater's horn blocks wouldn't fit. But as a starting point, that's where I would start.
Yeah. Can I add there, James? I think you'll find everyone's got their own views on this, Giles. First of all, when we talk about Slater's horn blocks, they have recently brought out a much improved product. The original one, which may still be around, was it was an etch, you had to assemble with soldering. And I found some weakness in those, and they didn't stand up to heavy use. The latest Slater's ones are a casting, just like the old, I think it was either Gladiator or Meteor. And Slater's also do an insulator one if you're into split axles. I personally, and I've built about 20 locos so far, the axle that's driven, I do not spring or compensate, because I had 1 or 2 cases where the loco rocked as a result of slightly eccentric wheels and so on. So I make the driven axle fixed, and that's usually the rear one. The front axle, I compensate across the axle with having sort of center bearings. That ensures the weight on the two leading wheels is exactly the same, which is important for steering the loco around curves. And if there's a middle axle, or more than one middle axle, I put a bit of side play on it for curves, and I spring that using Slater's horn blocks. The amount of side play you need obviously depends on your curves, but depending on how well your track is laid, it's not nearly as much as most people allow. My curves are 5'6", and it's an indoor layout, so they were laid with a radius rod, so there's virtually no kinks or anything. And I find, because there's a lot of slop between wheels and track anyway, I find 0.5 millimeter side play on the center axle of a, I mean, it's a 6-wheel, I mean 6-axle Pacific, is sufficient on my layout. But it is a matter of trial and error, depending on how good your track is. But ask 6 people and you get 6 different answers, I'm afraid. The only answer is to try it out yourself.
So how much side play would you put on the leading axle and the driven axle?
None. The leading axle, definitely none. You often have a problem with the crank pin fouling the crosshead or whatever. And usually I have to make a recessed screw to go in the coupling rod to avoid fouling the back of the crosshead. And the driven axle, again, none. Except when I did a 280, then I had a little bit of play on the back axle. It's amazing how much slack there's between the wheels and the track. And it's even greater if you use Slater's wheels, because their width over flange is slightly less than cast iron wheels. So provided your curves are smooth and not a series of kinks, which particularly on outdoor layouts can often be the case, the amount of side play is a lot less than a lot of people imagine.
I support that completely, Steve. Actually, the fixed wheelbase of a Pacific, LMS Pacific, is less than a 4F. So if you think 060, with a 4F, 6-foot radius curves, you don't actually need any side play on any of the axles because there is so much slop in fine scale between the wheel and the rail that you don't need any.
Right, excellent. I have a further question from Mick. Will there be any help with getting to grip with Templot? I find it a hard piece of software to get on with. Well, Mick, I would certainly concur with that. Templot is a strange tool, but once you've got into it, once you've got over the hurdle of learning how to use it, it's absolutely brilliant, and designing your layout using it is going to result in a very, very nice looking layout with lovely smooth curves. As far as Templot is concerned, I would recommend going onto the forum and asking questions there. Martin Wynn, who is Templot's guru, is a member of the Gauge-O Guild and appears to be very willing to help. Of course, there is a Templot forum as well, where you can get help. And the other thing is, as I've found, ask around in your... Are you a member of Model Railway Club, Mick? Where is he?
When I was designing track, I found the Templot forum very helpful, and I always got answers quickly when I was struggling with design.
I think that is one of the benefits of any forum, is you do get a response, and hopefully that's a helpful response, and it can be quite rapid. Templot is well worth sort of just try to use it, try to improve your skills. I know my way around Templot pretty well myself, so if you do want specific questions answered, you can always email me and I'll try and help. We don't have any further questions on here at the moment. So just wondering, have people been able to avail themselves of our videos yet? Is that something that anybody has looked at? No, possibly not.
Hi James, Russ Burridge here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I've just been watching, before I came onto this your session this now, I've been watching Nick Dunhill's video online on the forum, on the page, about putting his Rimney Railway R-Class boiler together, which I found quite interesting, because I've just built one the same, from the same kit, slightly different condition. I built mine sort of just prior to withdrawal. Nick's built one that's more or less in original condition, I believe. And just looking at it's obviously speeded up because he's got a fixed camera above his head. But some of his techniques are very, very interesting to watch how he does things. I'm not too keen on holding the bits of brass with your bare fingertips, but he does. He manages it. I have little lollipop bits of stick that I put between my fingertips and the brass. The whole thing's flat while I do my soldering. But no, I found it very, very interesting, and I think there's a lot more interesting videos on there, which we can all learn from. Techniques for rolling, for bending, and he uses simple tools. He hasn't got a rolling mill or anything as such. He's just does it with different size bars and things, and it does a superb job, as we've all seen from his output. So,
He does make some amazing models, doesn't he, Russ?
He does indeed. Yes, yes.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating to watch someone who's a professional. As you say, he's holding the brass with his fingers. He's clearly practiced, and he's clearly got. He must have just taken the skin off his fingers. Maybe he's got thicker skin on his fingers than most of us have. So years of burning himself.
I think he's got asbestos fingers, actually, but I think Nick is all the more skillful for the fact he doesn't use the machine tools. Now, people have said to me, "Oh, well, I could," but actually, at a clock repairer, or antique dealer, really, used to come to me with bits of clock, and he'd say, "Oh, I don't need it looking as good as that. The old clockmakers could." Just do the whole thing with hand tools. And I said, "Oh, well, I can bash it about it after if you like." No. I said, I think what he was saying was do it with the hand tools and it wouldn't cost him as much. But the fact is that having a machine tool takes a lot of the skill of using hand tools away, which suits me fine, actually, because I can file and I can drill by hand and so on, but it's so much easier with the machine tools. Nick does it all without. He's often asked me about machine tools, but I think he just enjoys doing it by hand. I'm sure if he did have machine tools, he'd run away with them and he'd be even more productive, but he is very productive and he is very skillful.
Little tip for holding hot metal. This is a pair of chef's gloves, and I can use my soldering iron touching these at 450C quite comfortably. Very good way of holding very hot metal. You can get them on the internet.
Very good, Mike.
I was just going to say about Nick Dunhill's stuff. I'm an HMRS trustee, and it would have been nice if he'd actually bought the drawing he was working from rather than nick it off the internet. But it's a good advert for the fact you can get them there. So one way or the other, anyway. Cheers.
Yeah, I actually bought the drawings for my copy because I wanted to see what it was.
Yeah, very good.
£9 each they are, but they're very good copies.
Yeah. Thanks.
Was Nick's model a scratch build then, or was that a kit build?
No, it's the Taffels models kit, James.
Yeah, I thought it was. Yeah, but
yeah.
He replaced he scratch built a smoke box, didn't he?
Yeah, and also modified the frame slightly as well to make them more actually in profile to what the actual prototype was.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
He fitted full working valve gear inside motion as well.
Yeah, I chat to Nick quite often, and he has the same philosophy as I do, really, that even the best of kits is just an aid to scratch building. And some of the better kits are a great aid, and some of the less are less good or less of an aid, and some aren't any aid at all. And I think he has struggled with some of the kits where he's often said to me, I could have started from scratch and got it done better and quicker. But, you know, a kit's very tempting, isn't it? Because it looks like it's all there.
Well, it does, assuming, of course, that it's all accurately etched in the first place, which of course
Absolutely,
isn't always
that's
the
why I
case.
say it's a snare and illusion. It looks like it's all there, but unless you can measure it on the stand or somewhere else, it's not to get it home that you find that it does all fit together, but not necessarily to scale, or some bits are narrower than they should be, and you have to sort of infill bits with cut and shut and so on. I just haven't built anything like as many models as Nick has, but I tend to take better kits and use them for scratch building. And in some cases, I just build from scratch, and there's very little difference other than a lot of the preliminary work's been done for you if you buy.
Well, thank you for that. Thanks, Ross, for talking about the videos. There are other, just to let you all know, the videos that are on the demonstration page at the moment will all be available on the Guild's website and the Guild's YouTube channel for forever after, as long as we have an internet. So please look at them at your leisure. Of course, these sessions were also going to be recorded and put onto YouTube as well. The layout videos will also be available. So you'll be able to do a lot of catching up over the days and weeks after this this virtual show. Do we have
Can I make a comment on the videos?
Yes, John.
Because it's so tightly packed, the schedule for today, I think where we've got question and answer sessions, it wasn't really practical to look at the videos before the session. It would have been really useful if those videos had been available, say yesterday or up to a week ago, so that we could do some homework.
That's a very interesting point. Yes, I'm not 100% sure why the decision was made not to make them public until 7 o'clock this morning, which is what actually happened. But yes, you do have a very good point, that you don't have an opportunity to talk about it.
Just one comment on the, I think it's the Glenn Garrick one layout. The aspect ratio has gone very weird. It's very, very skinny locos and very skinny peaks.
I'm sorry, that was I found that difficult to hear.
Sorry, I don't know if this mic's not working very well. The Glenn Garrick, is it the Scottish layout? The aspect ratio is all wrong on it. It's very if you look at the people, they're all skinny. The wagons are all very short, and all the rest look fine.
That's very interesting. That's something I haven't. I don't think I've looked at that particular video, so I was unaware of that. There is one video on the demonstrations done by Neil Podbury, where his wife took the video on his iPhone, and it's kind of the wrong way round. It's in portrait form rather than landscape form, but it's there, and the detail in it is extremely good, despite the fact it's the wrong way around. I would imagine that the video that we received from that layout would have been squashed rather than something that we've done to it, but I can check. Okay, moving on. The tech committee are committed to providing information for our members. We have plans to do more work on the website to bring some further information in. One of the things we want to do is reinvigorate the gallery, the members gallery. we think that would be a useful resource, but it isn't really being used very much at the moment. So one of our plans is to get a better gallery together where pictures can be uploaded by members, descriptions added to them, and contact details made available, so that if you want to contact the builder or the owner of that particular model, you'll be able to do so in a more convenient manner. I know a lot of members are worried about putting their contact details onto something that appears to be public, just in case, you know, in case of spam emails coming through to you and such like. I can assure you that that doesn't happen with the gallery as it stands at the moment. If you do put your contact details in, they are not searchable by a search engine, and they're not searchable therefore by any sort of spam robot. However, I do understand, you know, sort of members' reticence, and with GDPR regulations, it will mean that if a contact is made, it'll have to be through a mechanism that fires a request through to our members' database, which then passes an information request through to a member, who then has the choice as to whether they answer that or not. So it will bring a sort of element of privacy to our members, which is very important. So that's one thing we plan to do. We also have an online shop coming available very soon, where you'll be able to buy Guild products online and pay for them online using a credit card rather than having to phone. So that's another feature coming through very soon. And of course, the wiki will be expanded and further information added to that. And on that note, to do with the wiki, we are also looking for our members, and I'm looking at some of them now, contributing information for it. So if you see a hole, if you see a gap of information in our wiki, and you feel that you have information that you'd like to contribute, please let me know, and I can either ask you to insert it directly yourselves, or you can pass the information on to one of our members, and that information we can then enter that. So I hope that is something that I can see further contributors. We've so far got 13 people doing such work, and that number is increasing as we speak. So a question to do with the members' pictures be searchable, scenery, loco sheds, etc. That would be an excellent idea. We haven't developed the spec exactly at the moment, but that would be, I think what we need to do is to try and do everything within the same set of criteria as we use currently for the product directory and for the wiki, so that information, you can look for information on the website in the same way. It'll be searchable by locomotives, by railway company, by the type of gallery item that you've added and uploaded. So yes, Arthur, that is exactly right. Yeah, and this is one of the problems with the gallery at the moment. It's not a searchable resource. It's not useful.
If I can just add a little bit to that, James, with my gallery administrator's hat on. Let's see. I've been doing it for years now, but when I started, the whole thing was very different. The website, the front page, was really more about members, and every now and again a random picture would come out of the gallery, which I had selected to put into a second database, I suppose. Anyway, it's all moved on from there, but one of the things that's been consistent is that, looking at it, I think we've got some really good modelers amongst us in the guild. Many of them can take a pretty decent photograph, but there are very few who can write. I tear my hair out some mornings when I look at the gallery. I think, what is this supposed to be about? There's all sorts of abbreviations and things I have to look up and so on. So one of the key bits of all of this is trying to encourage people when they submit information, submit a photograph to the gallery, is to put some decent information and perhaps saying, I mean, there is a guide to the gallery and it says, don't put this in the title, make sure the description isn't just a repeat of the title. That's so common. And there's a suggestion of the sort of things you might include. Was it kit built? Was it easy? Was it difficult? Did you paint it? There's all sorts of things you could write, but normally I find that the titles aren't really very helpful. It just says something like afternoon tea, and there's an engine sitting outside an engine shed, and you think, well, fine, but and in the description it just says afternoon tea, so you've got two the same. Now, sometimes I just I take them out of the gallery and then I write to the person who wrote it and said, look, can we have a bit more than this? Most often what happens is nothing. So that photograph is then lost from the gallery. But I think that's preferable to just having photographs with inadequate titles and no description.
And at the moment we have a new volunteer looking at, who is a professional programmer, looking at a new gallery mechanism, possibly using Flickr. It's something that we're investigating at the moment. Flickr is a convenient resource to be able to park photographs. But as Nick has found, and as you'll find with the lockdown page on the virtual show, it doesn't appear to be a very good way of describing anything. So it's going to be a combination of somewhere to put the pictures, which will manage the pictures for us, and somewhere to put the information, but tying the whole thing together in what appears to be one place.
Sounds good to me.
So watch this space. When it comes to members' information as well, we very much welcome suggestions from membership. So we can only respond to things you'd like. So please do let me know if there's something that would be useful that is missing, and we'll do our best to find a way of providing that. So do communicate with us. It's very useful. Question for David regarding the gallery. Would it help to have boxes to fill in to go with the photos, e.g. type of loco, region, date, maybe what the kit is made of, etc.? You muted, David. David?
Sorry, I forgot to press. I was bound to forget eventually. I was just answering it through chat, but no, it's probably a question relevant for everybody. I think having a menu where you can put whether it's this and whether it's that and whether it's something else is a very good idea. At the moment, you can select whether it's a locomotive, whether it's BR era or LMS era, I can't remember, whether it's European, whether it's American and so on. What happens? Mostly people don't fill them in, so it comes up by default to be, I think it's BR era locomotive, and most of them come in like that. So I have to look at what the picture is and sort of think, oh, well, it's obviously a layout, so we'll do that. It looks like it's LMS era, so I'll tick that and so on. So yes, it's a great idea, but going back to what I said before, it relies on people who are uploading the pictures doing more than making a great model and taking a half-decent photograph. It requires them to put some information about their model.
How do you think we'd be able to encourage them, Arthur? Do you have some ideas of how to, force people to choose something sensible?
If my microphone will work.
Working fine.
I guess if you don't fill in some of the boxes, I mean, I'm just thinking banking and order forms and things, it says, hang on, you haven't ticked any boxes, you can't go on to you can't post it because you've not done, even if you have to tick a box saying, no, I cannot give you any information. No, but actually sort of in some way at least force them to fill something in.
Absolutely. That's the only way it'll work. Most of these boxes, you get a 50-50 option, whether it's an optional box or a compulsory box. You do when you do the like communication pages on a website. You know, if you're trying to, if you've got to email, you know, if you've got a contact us page or something like that, those boxes are usually optional or compulsory. You just need to make the boxes compulsory.
Yeah, I think all that would help. I think the problem, the way it is at the moment, is there's a drop-down menu, and if you don't choose whatever's in the menu at the top, it just leaves it where it was. I think what you said though, if you had a sort of a blank one and it came up and said, no, you can't have it blank, you've got to choose from here, even if one of the options is other or miscellaneous or something. Because I think most people are just more concerned about getting the photograph up. All the rest is sort of paperwork that's not interesting.
David, do you have many new pictures uploaded to the gallery? Is it something that's keeping you busy, or do you only get one occasionally?
To be honest, it doesn't keep me very busy at all these days. I can have a quick look in a minute, but a handful a week. Whereas in the early days or earlier days, it did keep me busy. It could be 10 a day sometimes, and then you might have a day with nothing, and then a whole load more. What's changed is we tend to get individual photographs from different people, you know, with days in between, nothing happens. Whereas before the website changed, oh, it's years ago now, wasn't it? But before the website changed, suddenly there'd be 10 photographs from one particular person. Sometimes I had to remove the duplicates, but by and large, they were different pictures, and they were all potentially good pictures. I'll just go and have a look in a minute, and I'll tell you how many have been in the last week, for example.
So in fact, one thing that we can do is whoever is monitoring the gallery, it would be perfectly feasible for them to correct information, because chances are we know if it's a logo, we will know what company it belongs to. So if they've marked it BR and it's clearly a London South Western BT well tank, then we'll know that.
That's exactly what I do. In some cases, I haven't the foggiest idea, and so I go doing an image search on the internet, and that's what sort of takes up the time. But in some cases, people use abbreviations for obscure railways I've never heard of, and I reckon, well, if I haven't heard of it, probably nobody else. So I go away and find it and put that in. But then the other thing, which I find quite tricky, is I think it's actually quite bad manners to refer to a manufacturer by some shortened name, or even almost a nickname. So I go and look in the guild traders and find out what this company is really called, because in many cases they are called something models, but actually the something has been misspelled by the person who put it up originally. So it's that sort of tidying up that takes my time. Sort of almost the pleasure from looking at the photographs has long since gone by then.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you for that. Yes. Do we have any other questions from the audience? We have another 7 minutes of our session. So, do we have any further questions, please?
James, has there been any talk or are you aware of any groups that are doing work with microprocessors for animation, things like that? You know, thinking of the sort of Arduinos kind of things. I mean, I know some people use Pis as well, but I've certainly just started looking at that with the ability to control stepper motors, so ideal for things like turntables. But you know, where with, for example, servo motors for like crossing gates and so on, you don't get enough of a throw. You have to fudge it. With obviously, if you can put a stepper motor in there, obviously you then get potentially full 360 degrees. I just wondered if there'd been anybody doing any work on either standard or the use of them with those scale.
The only thing I've seen is I'm pretty sure that Peter Reynolds' video of his signals that he's put up on this show includes the use of a Raspberry Pi, I believe.
Oh right.
But you're right. Something like an Arduino, which I've used in my work, be absolutely ideal for doing something like a turntable. And I have a turntable. It's over there behind me, waiting to get painted. It's the 70-foot Ransom Rapier model that is going to go in my Ilfracombe layout.
All right, yeah.
Yes, I know Ilfracombe had a 65-foot table. Yes. There isn't a kit.
My layout, I think the phrase is, isn't it, James?
My layout. And I want the turntable long enough to take the longer bullets. And driving that with an Arduino and a stepper motor is precisely what I would like to do. And the Arduino is an utterly brilliant bit of kit. And
James, at least one of the videos has of the layouts, somebody's using an Arduino. I can't remember which one it is, but if you get a chance to flick through the videos, maybe they can do us an article.
oh, okay, that's very interesting. I think it's something that will come in a lot more because they are so useful and so cheap.
Well, this is the thing that I've discovered it on another hobby line, but I've suddenly thought, right, I'm quite interested in doing this simple program, this programming and using them. And I was thinking, well, what make a worthwhile project? And then I suddenly thought, hang on, stepper motors. You get like three good ones for like 20 quid or something like that. I mean, if the Arduinos are, £9, even if you get the genuine, the actual Arduinos, they're not expensive. And I know that a mutual friend of ours, Mick Moinyard, has got a turntable controller, and I know that cost him about 400 quid. And I've looked at some of the uses of it around, and I'm thinking that will work. You can use push buttons to take it to a known point, and so on. Maybe you and I ought to get our heads together at club moment.
Well, I think we should. And one of the people who've taken over the work that I used to do is an electronics engineer who's been building his own stepper motor drives using inexpensive components for sort of small pharmaceutical devices. So between us, I think we could, with an Arduino plus the stepper motor drives and the cheap stepper motors, we can do something very interesting.
Okay.
We'll have to get together, John.
Okay, man.
Quick update on the gallery. There were 3 images uploaded in January, 5 in February, and none so far this month.
Well, I would hope that a new gallery facility would increase your workload, David. So keep you away from model making.
Oh, thank you very much.
Right, we're about to come to an end. So if there are no further questions, I'm quite happy to end this session. I think we've had a good discussion. I hope you've all found it useful. And I hope that you'll find the rest of the virtual show very useful as well. A lot of time and effort has gone in from the events committee to make this all happen. And I think it's the way to go. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, David, for your time. Thank you, Ken, for co-hosting, and all your comments, gentlemen.
Thanks, James.
See you again. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, James. Bye.